Welcome to the Military Tools for ArcGIS Distance and Direction for Analysts webinar. I'm Laura Krennick, Intelligence Marketing Coordinator here at Esri. Your presenters today are Daniel Barnes and Natalie Campos. During today's webinar, you will learn how to use distance and direction functionality to quickly sketch lines, circles, ellipses, and range rings on the map, and much more in both the desktop and web environments. I now turn over the webinar to Daniel and Natalie. Thank you for attending.
Thanks, Laura. So today we're going to talk about the distance and direction tool within Military Tools for ArcGIS. My name is Daniel Barnes, and with me is my colleague Natalie Campos. We're product engineers on the Defense Solutions team based in Redlands, California. The Defense Solutions team supports the defense, intelligence, and national security industry. We build configurable maps and apps built on top of the ArcGIS platform. They're fully documented and maintained, fully supported, and open source. Our goal is to make sure that you get the most out of ArcGIS regardless of your skill level. Our mission is to develop solutions to your problems and map and app templates to jumpstart your workflows. We've long supported geospatial analysts, but as we continue to expand and grow our offerings, we want to reach out to more users and create holistic workflows for the entire industry. One of our largest releases as of late is Military Tools for ArcGIS. Military tools are essential, supported, open source tools that are built to reduce the complexity, time, and ultimately the cost in creating common defense and intelligence geospatial products. We took significant user feedback in building these tools and also brought some of the newer functionality of the ArcGIS platform into the forefront of these tools. Finally, the tools are provided as a single add-in or as customizable widgets so that it's easy to get up and running with the tools. Military Tools at its first release is made up of 4 key components. We have coordinate conversion for converting a variety of coordinate notation formats, including MGRS, decimal degrees, and UTM, and others. We have the military symbol editor for creating and curating a series of military standard symbols based on 2525D or 2525 Bravo Change 2 standard symbology. This is in ArcGIS Pro, but you can also publish these symbols out into the web environment. We have the visibility tool for conducting linear and radial line of sight analysis with your elevation data. And today, we'll be talking about the distance and direction tool, where we can create circles, lines, ellipses, and range rings on the map. Military Tools for ArcGIS is available in ArcMap and in ArcGIS Pro for the desktop user. And for the web, they're available as widgets in Web App Builder Developer Edition 2.2. So for the distance and direction tool, you can create lines, circles, ellipses, and range rings. And you can do this in a variety of ways. The first way is creating these graphics dynamically with the map point tool. You simply click on a point on the map, and that can be your center point for your circle, ring, or ellipse, or your start point for a line. And from there, you just drag your cursor across the map to create the graphic, and click again when you're finished creating your graphic. Another way of creating these tools is by deliberately inputting an input coordinate for your circle, range ring, or ellipse, or a start and end coordinate for your line. You can also put in distance measurements, such as the radius or diameter for your circle, the minor and major axes for your ellipse, and a specific distance between a set number of range rings for the range rings tool. We also have some shape-specific functionality. For example, you can create lines from distance and a set bearing so that you can set an angle for charting a navigational course. You can use the distance calculator to create circles with specific parameters for time and for rate or speed. This can be used in basic distance over time analysis. Range rings also include the option for radials, which are lines that can divide up your graphic into sectors or segments. And finally, we have some geoprocessing tools, specifically for range rings, that can extend the functionality beyond what you can get in the add-ins. And Natalie will show that a little bit later. Finally, you can also share these tools, or share the outputs of these tools as shapefiles, feature classes, or KMZs. Before we dive into the demo, I'd like to go over just a couple of use cases. Because you're simply drawing shapes on the map, use cases are very broad. It could be as simple as measuring the distance of a line, but also, like I said, you can chart a course with distance and bearing, conduct distance over time analysis, sketch a potential blast radius, or sketching the circular extent of some sort of telecom signal. And that could also be used with ellipses as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Natalie, who will go over some of the functionality of the distance and direction add-in in ArcMap.
Thanks, Dan. Here we have the distance and direction add-in in ArcMap. The add-in contains several tabs that allow you to calculate distance and direction based on different geometries, like lines, circles, ellipses, or rings. Let's take a look at the functionality of the Lines tab. Let's say we want to quickly calculate the distance and direction from one location on the map to another, like from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Simply clicking a starting and ending point on the map instantly gives me a graphic with both the distance and angle information. The Line tab also allows us to choose from several line types, like geodetic lines, great elliptic lines, or loxodrome lines. As Dan said, we can also calculate distance from distance and bearing. Let's say we want to know the distance and direction of a line starting in San Diego at a distance of 10,000 kilometers at an angle of 35 degrees. By entering my starting point, my distance and angle, as well as the units of measurement, I can create my graphic. I can then save my graphic as either a feature class, shapefile, or a KMZ. Saving my analysis allows me to use the information in other parts of the platform, like ArcGIS Earth. I can then publish my results and share it with others across my organization. Now let's take a look at the Rings tab. Let's say I want to conduct a search and rescue over Los Angeles. I simply drop a center point, enter in my number of rings, determine my distance between rings, set my units of measurement, and determine my radials. The resulting graphic will honor all of my input values the resulting graphic, like the Lines tab, can also be saved as a feature class, shapefile, or a KMZ. I can also create my lines interactively by clicking the interactive box, dropping a center point, and moving my mouse to create the desired number of radials at the desired distance. We can extend the functionality of the distance and direction add-in even further through the use of the distance and direction toolset located in the Military Tools for ArcMap toolbox. The distance and direction toolset contains 3 tools: the range ring from interval tool, the range ring from minimum and maximum, the range ring from minimum and maximum table. If we take a look at the range rings from interval tool, we could see that the tool will allow us to create multiple range rings at once. We can do this by inputting center point features or collecting them interactively from the map, like from San Francisco, Dallas, Chicago, Boston, and Miami. I can then enter in the number of rings, my interval between rings, as well as my distance units and my number of radials. The resulting features from this GP tool will create multiple range rings at once that are clearly labeled with the units of measurement and the desired interval. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Natalie. So Natalie just showcased some of the functionality of the distance and direction add-in in ArcMap. Now I'll go over some of the functionality of the distance and direction widget, which can be used in web applications with Web App Builder for ArcGIS. So what we're looking at on my screen right now is our sample Defense Solutions web application that we've built, and it includes a variety of widgets down here at the bottom of the screen. We have the distance and direction widget, the coordinate conversion widget, and the visibility widget. All of these widgets are part of military tools for ArcGIS. We also have a variety of other widgets, which are either part of the broader Defense Solutions offering or come out of the box when you install Web App Builder for ArcGIS. I'll go ahead and open up the distance and direction widget. You can see as I expand the widget that the functionality is very similar to the functionality that you can find in the add-ins in ArcMap and in ArcGIS Pro. And this is purposeful. We wanted to make sure that regardless of whether you're working in the web or in the desktop environment, you can use military tools to accomplish your workflows. I'll start by tabbing over to the Circle tab. You can create a circle that will give you a label with the measurement of your radius or the circle's diameter. I'll stick with radius for now and use the map point tool here to draw a circle. I'll click over Orange County in Southern California and then just drag my mouse and you can see the circle preview is expanding. When I click again, the circle will be created and it'll give us a label with the radius distance. I'm going to click the Clear Graphics tool, and this time I'm going to deliberately put in a center coordinate. You can see that the map will pan over to downtown Los Angeles for the center point coordinate. I'll put in a specific distance for the radius, and I'll make the unit of measurement kilometers. You can see we have a variety of units that you can choose from. When I click enter, you can see that the circle is created and the label appears on the map as well. The third way to create circles with the distance and direction tool is by using the distance calculator. I'll place a center point here with the map point tool in the Santa Barbara Channel, in between the Channel Islands and the coast of Southern California. This point will represent the last known location of a shipping vessel. We last learned of its location 2 hours ago. And we know that this boat can travel at a rate of about 10 nautical miles an hour. We have a lot of different options for rate or speed parameter here. When I click enter, you'll see a circle is created on the map with the radius of 37.04 kilometers. This output represents simple distance over time analysis, giving us an idea of how far this boat might have traveled over the course of the past 2 hours given its speed. We're not taking into account weather or terrain here, but this could be a good jumping off point for planning or analysis. And there's a couple of use cases here. This boat could be a boat that we need to find for a search and rescue operation, or this boat could be a potentially hostile force that's conducting nefarious naval activities such as piracy or smuggling of contraband or things like that. So the use case for the distance calculator is pretty broad. Next, I'll move over to the ellipse tab. Similarly to the circle tab, you can create ellipse that will be semi or full. This is analogous to a radius or diameter with the circle tab. I'll click on a center point for the map point tool, and the dynamic creation here is in two parts. You click the length of the major axes and you can see that there's a preview line drawing there, and then you click again for the length of the minor axes. These preview lines will disappear and the ellipse will be created with 3 labels: your major axes, minor axes, and a specific angle in degrees. I'll go ahead and create this again, but this time I'll do it with our center coordinate over downtown Los Angeles. I'll input about 50 kilometers for the major axes, 25 for the minor. I'll change the unit to kilometers, and then I'll set an orientation angle of 45 degrees. When I click enter here, you'll see that I have the labels and the ellipse are appearing with the proper degrees and sizing. So next up, I want to showcase how we actually got to this point. We have the distance and direction widget along with several other widgets in a working web application that's live in my browser. But it starts out when you actually download military tools for ArcGIS or put the contents on the machine, that you have these 3 folders. You have ArcGIS Pro and ArcMap, which are how you access the add-in installation files. But we're going to focus on the Web App Builder Developer Edition folder. Within this folder, we have a folder for our 3 widgets. We have coordinate conversion, distance and direction, and visibility. These are custom widgets that you'll need to add in to your instance of Web App Builder Developer Edition. If I go inside the distance and direction widget, you'll see it has a variety of containing files and folders that drive the functionality of the widget. I can click copy, and then I'll just navigate to where we have Web App Builder for ArcGIS. This is what is on my local machine, and this is how I can actually run Web App Builder. If I go to the Client, STEM App, Widgets folder, you'll see I have a long list of widgets. Some of these are custom widgets. I've already pasted distance and direction, and I have coordinate conversion as well. But some of these widgets come out of the box when you download Web App Builder. For example, draw, edit, and filter widgets. So what does this actually look like when you launch Web App Builder and are viewing it in a browser? This is the home page for Web App Builder for ArcGIS. You can see that I have a blank application here, and it's titled Distance and Direction. I'm going to configure this application to add the Distance and Direction widget into this app. I'm going to do this by first clicking on the Configure App button. This will load the Builder view of Web App Builder for ArcGIS. You see I have the map, and it's still very prominent, but on the left here I have tabs for Theme, which control the user interface, Map, where I can choose the web map and the foundational data that will go in my application. But I'm going to focus on the widget. In this first blank square here, I can click Choose Widget, and this opens up the Choose Widget dialog. This is the list of widgets that I was showcasing in my File Explorer, but now it's surfaced in Web App Builder for ArcGIS in a browser. I'm going to click on the Distance and Direction widget. When I click OK, this will take us to the configuration page. The configuration page is where you can edit the line color and line width for the shapes, lines, circles, ellipses, and rings, and also the text color and text size for your labeling. You can do this by using the color picker or by entering specific RGB or hex values. You can do this if you want to customize the design of your graphics to fall in line with whatever requirements you have or whatever cartographic styling that you want to pursue. When you click OK, you'll see that the widget has been added to the application. And just as a proof of concept, I can draw a line here, and it'll be geodesic in my app. So we have one more step. You might notice that there's no labels here. So what you have to do to add labels to your application and get the full functionality out of the distance and direction widget is to copy and paste a statement that will turn labels on into the config JSON file for your application. That might sound like a complicated step for some of you. It might sound like a simple step for others, but I just think it's important to showcase because in order to get labels, it's necessary, and it'll make sure that you are driving the full functionality of the widget when you build these applications. So the first step will be just saving this application, navigating back to the home page, and then I'm going to go to our online documentation. We have both online and offline documentation in the form of a PDF. You can see under Military Tools for ArcGIS, I'm in the Web App Builder tab. And here I'm going to navigate to the Configure Distance and Direction widget topic. There's a step in here that will add labels, show you how to add the labels to your application. I'm going to copy this Show Labels True statement and then navigate to the app folder within Web App Builder. Each app gets a number. This is the 16th app I've made so far. And I'm going to go to the config JSON file. I'll just open it up in a text editor, Notepad++. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paste under map options this statement, show labels equals true. It's basically saying labels will be turned on once I save this. So I'm going to go ahead and save it and navigate back to Web App Builder. And if I did this correctly, I'm going to go ahead and launch Web App Builder for ArcGIS. And this is just the live view of the app in a browser. It's not in builder mode anymore. This is just the live app. And then when I create my line from North America to Europe, labels should appear. So I just showcased some of the functionality for the distance and direction widget, and also how you can go from your install of Military Tools for ArcGIS to a completed web application. Before we close out, I'm just going to go over some of our closing slides. So our first release for Military Tools happened in January, and we've been working on some enhancements since then. The one that I would like to point out in the short term is working on batch coordinate conversion. This is the ability to take in a list or a table of coordinates and convert all of those coordinate notations into another coordinate notation at once. Looking more long-term, we're going to incorporate a couple of additional tools into military tools for ArcGIS, namely the gridded reference graphic widget for creating gridded search areas overlaid on the map, and then the grid overlay widget, which overlays an MGRS grid, and it's scalable in the web as well. These tools are currently available to download, but they're not rolled into the military tools for ArcGIS offering. So right now, we are finishing up with the 5th of 6th military tools for ArcGIS webinars. We have one more. It's working with military symbols. So that's all about the military symbol editor and military symbology in ArcGIS Pro. That'll be on June 20th. All the other webinars, and once we're finished with the series, all the webinars will be recorded, and they're located on the defense/webinars link that I have at the bottom of the screen here. And with that, I'll hand it back to Laura for some question and answer.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Now we'd like to give you all the opportunity to get your specific questions answered. Please use the Questions tab on your right to type in your question, and we will go ahead and answer it live here. We'll start with some of the questions that have already been asked. Question 1, can calculations be made in nautical miles?
I'll take that one. For the distance calculator for circles, you can do measurements in nautical miles.
Perfect. Is it possible to create range rings or circles that use geodetic distance?
All of the range rings that we create actually are geodetic. So if you go and experiment with some of the range rings at higher latitudes, you'll see that you'll notice that the range rings and circles are geodetic. I can actually showcase that, I think. So ellipses are actually not geodetic, but range rings are. So yeah, so you'll see that the range rings are geodetic.
What will these graphics look like in a 3D space?
So in 3D, these will simply show up draped onto the terrain that you have. They'll show up as 2D features, so if you have them in a 3D scene in ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Earth, they're simply draped. If you're looking for range domes, we do have a template called Range Dome Analysis that's separate from military tools, but it'll enable you to create range domes in a 3D scene in ArcGIS Pro.
Perfect, thank you. We have another question here from Dominic. Is it possible to create range boxes, say 25 by 25 nautical mile square?
We currently do not have the ability to create squares with our distance and direction tool. However, we'd love to hear your use case and possibly and bring that in for future enhancements.
Jonathan asks, will this tool generate a distance and direction to a nearest point feature in a scripting environment without having to click on that nearest point?
Jonathan, you can actually copy and paste coordinates into the distance and direction starting an ending point box, and that'll allow you to calculate the direction to the nearest point.
Mark asked, in which spatial format are rings stored?
So in the desktop environment, these are being stored as graphics, and then you can export those to either shapefiles, feature classes, or KMZ files. And once you do that, you'll be able to, well, especially with feature classes, you'll be able to turn those into services and publish them to the web and access the rest of the platform with that. In the web, I think they're also just graphics, and we currently don't have the ability to export those into features in the widget, but that is an enhancement, I believe, for the future.
Also, the results from the GP tool, the features that come out are polyline features that contain the radials and the rings.
We have another question here. Can you save multiple graphics at once using the Save As button?
Yes, so if you're in ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro and you're creating multiple, or you can create the graphics one at a time, but then when you click that Save As button, it'll save all of the graphics that are currently being displayed on the map into the feature class KMZ or shapefile.
Perfect. Do you plan on enhancing the distance and direction tools to include the creation of more shapes, such as squares, hexagons, etc.?
At this time, no. That enhancement has not been thought of. But if you could provide a use case, we'd be willing to think about it.
Can you convert the range rings into range domes?
So range domes will require the range dome analysis template, and that's taking advantage of the 2D to 3D capabilities within ArcGIS Pro. And that's a separate thing from military tools. So these are just 2D range rings that you're creating with the distance and direction tool.
Wonderful. That is it for questions right now. We would be happy to answer any further questions that there are. If you want to go ahead, we'll give you a couple more minutes to type those out. Okay, if there are no more questions, we're going to go ahead and end here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you learned quite a bit, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will be having our last webinar coming up on June 20th, so please be sure to sign up for that. You will receive a link in your post-webinar email, and from this link, you can go ahead and watch the recording, or you can sign up for the upcoming webinar. Additionally, we will have a survey popping up at the end of this webinar. We would appreciate if you would take the time to answer just a few questions so that we can continue to produce quality webinars.